We have it. We have Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, and there we have William Ruto. If I remember correctly, Uhuru Kenyatta then is quoted as saying we need to support funding of counties, and his most recent comments being in Nakuru County, where he asked whether money, does it say money comes down like rain? What does it say?
Some people think that we operate as if money comes to us like rain.
Yes, money comes to us like rain, where Raila Odinga is quoted then in Naivasha. Now, what is it to do with? This is the presidential system. He backed apparently a presidential system in Naivasha. Now he's rooting for a parliamentary system. That is Raila Odinga, the opposite of William Ruto, then backing a parliamentary system and now quoted as saying?
I'm very no, suggestion on PM post has two problems: functional opposition, and if created, it will still be taken by the winning party.
And that's when he spoke at the
Chatham House in London.
All right. So I'll start with you. Are your party leaders, let's start there, masters of doublespeak? And as Cheruiyot said, the Jubilee panelists here this morning, Wims?
By the way, let me agree with one thing that Wamatangi said. We may appear battered at the moment as a party, and we have our challenges. There's even the assertion that President Uhuru has been a terrible president, perhaps the worst as compared to all the other previously. At the end of his term, particularly Cheruiyot, I'd want us to dispassionately look at the numbers, because numbers don't lie. Emotions can go either this way or that way. You'll be shocked that actually there are credible things that he has achieved. The things that he has gotten right are far more outweigh the few that he has gotten wrong. And that is a debate that you are willing...
That's like what?
That is a debate that you are willing to have.
Okay, can you give him maybe an example or two?
On
what President Kenyatta has gotten right, yes.
I have told him, number one, check on the connections that we have made to the national grid. That is in terms of power. Cheruiyot is a rich man. So to him, he doesn't connect how power is useful, as is the case to Eseli. In terms of road infrastructure, you need to move around this country. Just stop around sitting in this studio, Cheruiyot, and see the number of road infrastructure that has been put across the country in perhaps almost all the 47 counties. Of course, Eseli will be...
Lying.
My friend, I've been to... You come from Bungoma. I've been to Bungoma to...
Those 30 kilometers are the ones you are talking about.
So that is not road.
All right,
let's
now move forward. Let's now move forward to the question of doublespeak. Are your party leaders masters of doublespeak? We are the first government that has fixed the education system. Before then, when these guys were in power, people were selling examination papers across the country.
CBC and laptop.
You know? So I told you, if I begin to count, they'll begin to heckle.
All right, okay. Let's get back on track. Let's get back.
And those are just three of Uhuru's achievements.
I'll hold my horses.
Even this theory that Kibaki was far more successful than President Uhuru. Well, they will put it to an empirical test and see their numbers against each other.
To put those things
but when I begin, you heckle.
No, I'm not heckling. I'm just
like Eseli here. So since it's not the debate, let's go back to what you have asked me
about
masters. I think this is unfair to President Uhuru, former Prime Minister Raila, and DP William Ruto. They say it's only a fool who does not change his mind, and on certain issues are informed by particular realities. In 2010, the position they occupied, apart from Raila, who was the prime minister, the rest were actually either members of parliament or sitting in cabinet. Of course, with the experience of having run government at this particular point, there are one or two things that they have learned over time and realized that actually this is my position. This was my position then. But having lived through the kind of constitution that we've been through the last 7 or 8 years, they appreciate certain things are not proper with it. The same goes for Raila Odinga. When he spoke back then as prime minister, perhaps the leading presidential candidate at that particular time, over time, and especially with the experience of losing the two subsequent elections, I mean, it is okay for him if he feels at this particular point that our parliamentary system will fix many of the challenges that you continue to change. So there's nothing to do with doublespeak.
No.
Doublespeak will only appear if they say one thing here, then tomorrow, or in a matter of days or a few months, they have changed the same position and taken on a completely different trajectory. But surely, to quote what they said in 2010 versus what they've said in 2019, a different constitutional dispensation, they were in different positions in government, is being unfair to them.
All right. But I think the point being made by the Standard is that they are taking positions on issues, perhaps on what is convenient for them at the present time, and not necessarily on as a matter of principle.
Which is what I say. You know, sometimes principle is overrated. I mean, if I say something today, and over a period of time, say 1, 2, 3, and this, what you're talking about is close to 9 years, I realize that my position then may have been informed by certain realities. But over time, I have learned and grown in my appreciation of national issues. There's nothing wrong in changing it.
Okay, let's take a look at the BBI, for example, right? We've had supporters, I'm not saying the deputy president has said, let's wait and see.
Yeah.
But even listening to his lieutenants when they speak, they have called it the Blue Band Initiative. They have sought to undermine it. I can't remember, there was another version of the BBI that was put across. What was it? I can't recall. It'll come to me. But this is even before they have had a chance to look at the document. They've already decided that BBI is not good for us. Does that mean that our leaders take positions on issues, not necessarily because it is good for the country, but just because it is politically convenient?
I am one of those who have been on record, even on this show, as being critical of the BBI.
And you haven't seen the document?
Yes.
You haven't seen the report?
Do you know
and
why?
You've already taken a position on it?
The process informs the product. When they came to Cheruiyot, for example, the county that I represent, the people voted for me to be their voice on matters politics. They didn't have even the simple courtesy of seeking the opinion of leaders, seeking the opinion of the opinion leaders. They only got into a room with people that they had selected somewhere and got them into a hotel and said that we have listened to the people of
Mheshimiwa,
Cheruiyot.
did you attempt to go to that hotel and did somebody buy you from accessing the venue?
I would be mad. How do you go to a meeting you haven't been invited? For heaven's sake, I'm a member
But
of
you are,
parliament.
no, but they published in the
meetings.
paper, they said, we are receiving views, we'll be in this county at this and this point.
That is not how public participation is conducted. I would be mad if I supported a product whose process I have a lot of questions about. The only thing that will make me, for example, change my mind about BBI is if eventually the product comes out and it confirms that some of our fears were misinformed. But as it is up to now, I cannot change my mind on it until such a time that I see and say, okay, well, they tried. But it will be important when you're conducting, you know, we've been through 2010, 205 constitutional review, we've been through all these other public driven initiatives we have lived through as a country. We know how to conduct public. They are done even in public.
But you're saying you would change your mind if you read the document and it's worth its salt. But why didn't you reserve your comments? Because now you have, you know, some Kenyans, this is, okay, unfortunately, history has shown us that they will take a position on an issue based on what their leaders tell them. So if you go in and already you have created this negative perception about what this BBI is, have you done the electorate justice?
The reason I had to take a stand right now is that I'm a representative of people. People who ask me, what is your opinion on this particular issue? And I have to tell them the truth that I do not know about it. My views about it were never sought. Therefore, I cannot give it the thumbs up and support it until
But
such
is
a
it
time.
an informed opinion before you have a chance to look at the document?
Listen, it's not an opinion of whether it is right or wrong. It's an opinion on the process. As it is right now, I am not convinced how it was done. Plain and simple.
All right.
I haven't said that.
Mheshimiwa Eseli.
I think, this paper is a bit misleading because if you talk about the 2010 constitution, Raila was not in Naivasha.
It was not.
But Uhuru and Ruto were in Naivasha. So it's important that the papers also get these things right. And to my perception, Raila's side really wanted a parliamentary system. But there was a deadlock in Naivasha. And through sleight of hand, the presidential system was introduced, thinking that Raila will reject it. And therefore, if he rejects it, it will be said, you see, this man doesn't want a new constitution. He keeps on rejecting things. So what he did, he called their bluff and ran with it. And that's why Ruto, who was in Naivasha, now backpedaled and went into the no. And Uhuru remained watermelon for some time before he joined the yes side. So it's there was a lot of underhand dealings in that. So when we talk of doublespeak, I think we need to be very careful about it. Like when you talk of the BBI, I, for one, presented to the BBI, both on behalf of my party and on behalf of myself, and I actually looked for them and asked for an appointment. And I went and presented what my views were and what my party's views were. Because let's start from one premise. I mean, let's start from one point. Are we happy with the direction of this country? When surveys have been done, most Kenyans are saying they don't like the direction the country is taking. Now, when they say that, there must be a problem. We must look for solutions. And perhaps BBI is one of their ways of looking for the solutions. So I'll wait to see what their report is, because I also presented my views and my party's views. So I'll wait for their report to see whether they've captured those views or not. Then we can discuss from there. Otherwise, for now, I think what Senator Cheruiyot's side is doing is they're just muddying the waters so that by the time the report comes out, they have poisoned people's minds. But that should not be. We need to know why exactly are they doing that. What is making them fear what the report of the BBI might be? It's because, and it's in the common knowledge now, many feel that the BBI is there to stop William Ruto from being the president. And that's why his side is acting like that. To me, it doesn't matter who will be the next president, because the next president will have a very, very difficult task turning around this country economically from where we've reached. So even if it's William Ruto, even if it's whoever, it's not the issue. I'm more worried with what I said earlier, that the primitive accumulation of wealth that has gone on in this country in the last 6 or so years has concentrated that money in a few hands. And these people are willing to spend that money on politics, including bribery, to get what they want. So my fear is that if we don't do something, whether BBI is the solution, so be it. But we need to do something to change that direction. If we don't change that direction, then we'll have a situation where Kenyans will continue being impoverished, and because there's a lot of propaganda that's flown around, they'll keep on still, clapping for the oppressors, as it were. There's a syndrome, they say, where somebody has been kidnapped and they start loving their kidnappers. I don't know, the Stockholm syndrome. I think Kenyans are going to undergo a Stockholm syndrome, and we need to avoid that. So I would say it's not a question of doublespeak. It's a question of the realities that are on the ground now. That's what we need to deal with.
So you agree with Aaron Cheruiyot on that point?
Yeah.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Otiende Amolo?
I think Eseli Sumio has put it quite well. The headline of the Standard does not even reveal the doublespeak that it purports to do. And I think it is important, one, that history is understood in its context. As far as I know, at all material time, Raila has always preferred a parliamentary system. He has never changed on that. But as far as I understand the shenanigans of the time and with the Naivasha meeting, it was a contest on two issues, devolution and the system of government. There are those, especially in PNU then, who preferred a presidential system of government and who were vehemently opposed to decentralization by way of devolution and preferred a more centralized government. There are those in ODM who preferred a parliamentary system, but also preferred the most robust form of devolution that you could find. As I understand it, the compromise had to be made that those who were opposed to devolution had to cede some ground to accept devolution in the constitution, and the compromise was that then it was ceded to them to have a presidential system. So those of us who were in the committee of experts, when then the document came back, we had proposed a parliamentary system, not just because people like ODM and Raila wanted it, but the majority of Kenyans, by a small margin, preferred it by 51%. But when the document came and it had been changed into a presidential system, ours was just now to tidy up. Now, concessions and compromise is not doublespeak. We must be clear. Anytime there's a negotiation, even as we are coming now, there will always be things to negotiate. We will have to negotiate the question of the system of government. We will have to negotiate the form of devolution in terms of percentages and extent. We will have to negotiate a lot of things. So when you negotiate for the sake of compromise, that is not necessarily doublespeak. Two, on BBI, I think they are supposed and are likely to present their report soon. And therefore soon, we will stop speculating in terms of what they could propose, and we will start discussing exactly what they say. I have said on this show, though, that in truth, the reason why the deputy president opposes the idea of BBI and all his surrogates is because they suppose that the BBI is likely to upset the status quo, which they believe singularly advantages the deputy president to ascend after Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And they suppose that the BBI initiative might come with certain proposals which might be unpredictable. And for that reason, they have consistently opposed it, including the deputy president, who, I think the president stopped short of calling his deputy names, but I think he did, because he said that those who are opposing the BBI, hao ni wakora. And you know, the DP and my friend Aaron here and others have been opposing it. So I think there must be the wakoras that were being talked about. The truth is, anyone and everyone knows that the deputy president is opposed to the idea of the BBI. Look at yesterday's news. I was watching NTV. And a day after the president speaks in support of BBI, the deputy president is in a meeting somewhere. I didn't see my friend Aaron Cheruiyot there, but Murkomen was there and others of my colleague. And if you saw the passion and venom with which my friend Murkomen was attacking the idea of BBI, if you saw my colleagues in the presence of the deputy president saying BBI means Beba Baba Ikulu, I mean, you don't need rocket science to see where this is going. Unfortunately, they fail to understand the kind of changes that are likely to come if most of the proposals that were made to the team are carried. Even if those proposals are carried and we are contemplating a parliamentary system, there's going to be a very delicate balance that we must negotiate. It's not just the question of creating a prime minister's position. We would have to negotiate and navigate around the issues which we did navigate in 2010. The idea of having a prime minister and a president. Because while a parliamentary system is a good thing, and I personally support it, with the prime minister, not who is elected by members of parliament, and that's a mistake commonly made. In any parliamentary system, each party has its leader. And as we are going to vote, you know, if I vote for this party, the person who will be the leader of that party is so-and-so. So it's not just that members of parliament then start voting, no. However, Kenyans are still into this idea of having a president, and especially one who they also elect. The greatest challenge in that thinking would then be, how do you navigate and have a prime minister with executive powers on the one hand, and still have a president, even if largely ceremonial, but who is elected? It's not an easy. And I can tell you some of the discussions we had were quite detailed. So I think in fairness, those who have chosen not to participate, like Aaron Cheruiyot, in that process, cannot then start crying that they were not given the opportunity, because the opportunity was available to everyone. But it is still, the advantage is that it's still not late, because the BBI will produce a report. That report will be the subject of national discourse. They still have the opportunity to give their input at that time, before we come to the question of reducing the text in terms of the constitutional text that we propose. So I think not all is lost.
All right. Now, I know I'll be accused of giving you too much time, but I'm coming to you, Senator Wamatangi, and also you, Mheshimiwa Jacob Midiwo. But do you see where Senator Cheruiyot is coming from? He's saying, okay, not he's saying, but two people sat in a room. They decided that this is the biggest problem that Kenyans are facing. They came out and they told us, okay, this is the way forward. Perhaps they had advisors, I don't know. They came out and they told us, okay, this is the way forward. His problem is that the process has not been inclusive, and therefore that compromises whatever the BBI team will come up with from the onset.
Aaron Cheruiyot, as my friend, cannot have a problem with that process, because his leader of choice is the deputy president. A deputy president deputizes. So when the president sits with whoever he chooses and they agree on a course, you are expected to deputize. And if you have a problem with that, resign. He has not resigned.
Otiende cannot answer you.
Secondly,
Let me help you.
the two people we are talking about are the leaders of the two biggest political formations so far. And anyone who loves this country will agree that if it were not for that handshake, this country might be totally different. It might not even be a country today. So no one can say that those two people should not have sat. The issue is constitutional changes can be initiated in any way. It can even be initiated by street process. It can be initiated like the Punguza Mzigo guys tried, except that their proposals were unpalatable. It is not the initiation that is important. What is important is the product and the outcome.
But the impression created, I need the two gentlemen to speak, then I'll come to you for the last part on that. The impression that is created is that this was about creating jobs, this accommodating more people into government. Is it about creating jobs?
That is not the impression. That is the impression that those who are opposed to BBI are trying to create. Because it is not founded on anything. It is not founded on... How do you even create an impression before you see the document? How do you know that the document will propose any of these things? You must wait. And if you thought that is the impression, then you appear before them and tell them, don't create jobs for anyone. If you don't appear, how do you stand out and shout in that, we hear you are creating jobs, please don't, and you're not even telling those people? That is not how to input into a process. You go and you tell them, we want this process to be objective, do not create jobs, and then explain how those jobs are not created.
All right. Senator Wamatangi.
Yes. Thanks, Olive. And Otiende Amolo has spoken a lot.
Both sides now have spoken a lot.
I have to put that on record so that you can stop accusing me. He has consumed all the time that we had to say things. But, well and good. Before I make my comment on this, Olive, I want to make a request that you schedule some time in the next debate on Tuesday. And I would want us to have a discussion here, a serious discussion, that you give us at least some 30 minutes of the airtime that we have. And I want us to come and speak about a few things. One, I want us to speak about what are the effects of rebasing an economy, that when a government decides to rebase an economy. I want us to come and speak about what does it mean when a government does construct roads in a span of 7 years more than has been constructed for the last 50 years by that country since independence. I want us to speak about when a government initiates a program to ensure that more than 90% of its lowest people in the country are connected to power through, for example, a last mile project. Let us speak about when a government establishes, for example, Huduma centers to ensure that every citizen in this country can access services. It's my time. This is my time. This is my time. I'm putting gentlemen here on notice. I want us to speak about when you establish, for example, Huduma centers across the country. What does that mean? When a government decides to digitize records that you can access and pay your taxes and register yourself for services online, does that have an effect? I mean, when you open ports like in Lamu, in Mombasa, JKIA, what does that have as an effect on the economy? When you establish free maternity in a country like Kenya, does that constitute development? When you ensure that the education system is overhauled, a curriculum is fully overhauled, what has that done? And lastly, I want this gentleman to come and tell us that when a body like IMF declares that they have projected a growth to the economy at 6.5% more than what they have projected for the entire of Africa at 5.5%, is that a failing economy? Is that a failed state? I'm saying those things because even at what we would be discussing about whether it's the cost of the SGR and so on, is it entirely a bad project? That's the debate I would want you to set time for us to come and have a discussion about here, so that this cloud that people like to hang up behind and then make and throw fire shots, that are not aimed at anything, but eventually they mislead people. But then let me come to the debate itself.
Well, you did ask for the Jubilee government.
Yes,
yes.
But let me come to the debate itself. And the debate I would want to have is on this discussion, especially around the BBI and doublespeak. First, on the doublespeak, Olive. You see, as it said, only a fool does not change his mind. A wise man does. And I would be very apprehensive if, even myself as a political leader, having lived and seen our political system and what it has done to us, and especially since 2010 when we gave ourselves a new constitution, and then the events of 2002, after we had the constitution, the events of 2007 and 2008, and the violence that was visited upon Kenyans, and the losses that we incurred, and then again subsequently all the way to 2013 and even 2017, I would be strange to myself if I said that over certain decisions I made then, I've not changed my mind. And such that, for example, positions held by political leaders at whatever level they would have spoken earlier are definitely bound to be influenced by the metamorphosis of our political system, by events that have come up. So such that you find that things that were said then by Raila Amolo Odinga or by William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, and ourselves, not only them, because sometimes their voices are captured higher because they're the top, but we speak a lot also, even during those arrangements, for them to speak last. Definitely, views have changed. I believe that BBI and the release of that report from the 23rd is supposed then to inspire and ignite debate on the content of BBI itself, just like Punguza Muzigo did. When it came out and then it was sent to the counties, there was discussion, and that debate happened in county assemblies for them to decide that this is not a good proposal to change the constitution or the laws of this country. When BBI is finally released, that this debate is going to ensue. And when it does, as you played that clip by Kiraito Murungi, he said, if it is a good thing, we'll like it, we'll adapt it. If it's a bad thing, tutayangusha. Those are the words that he used. And so, I believe that the way we would pass judgment on what content is in the BBI is let it come out. Let's debate it. Let's what this gentleman said. In my earlier discussions about BBI, I've been very forthright that BBI itself can also not pretend or pretend to know everything. A good thing is that they went around the country, they collected views, but then they also must be open to further discussion, such that once people now have seen and read the collected views and put together, then we are able to say that this way we would do better, we can change that, and then finally what we all want is a good country. Yes. And lastly,
please allow Mheshimiwa Midiwo, please. So that
I wanted to exhaust Jacoyo Midiwo. He came into the studio with a set mind.
Mheshimiwa
Matangi, I want to tell you, I'm happy you have used the phrase that which also Cheruiyot is using, that only fools don't change their minds. We see your caliphate trying to shortchange Kenyans. You are busy shortchanging Ruto, and I have information you are trying to shortchange everybody else. We won't let you. You have run this country as a caliphate to the dogs. And we must talk to you. When you come here and lecture us about rebasing economy, you cannot talk about rebasing economy when last week there was a list of appointments to the boards. It was all people from his village. Not from his village. I'm not even blaming you. We have to talk. This is political talk. You cannot go appointing Kikuyus in every board and all that, and then you expect us not to react. We must do it for the rest of Kenya. And I thank the media for really giving us the opportunity to do it, because you don't pay us to do it. We do it because we mean well for our country. You can't do that. You can't have a country where everybody thinks government is the employer, and then private sector is paying for it, and the private sector is not supported. You can go to hell. You must talk to us about the people being fired from their jobs. in our country, because it is unbearable. We thank the people who fought for the second liberation, but some of us now must come and fight for the third liberation. It must happen that way, Olive. You know what Mamatang is? We can't come here and sugarcoat government. No, because there's no more government. It's a failed state.
Okay.
We can't do it. But now let me tell you this. I was there the day Naivasha was trying to figure out the issue of whether parliamentary or presidential. Raila was actually in Geneva. I was the chief whip. I was called to the Prime Minister's office. There was Salim Lone, there was Miguna, I was with Jim Orengo, and myself. And we asked him, now, because we were called by the same William Ruto, they're defending, because I want to talk about BBI a bit. We were called, and he said, now we are here. William meant well. But Raila told us, have a discussion about it. We reached the conclusion that let us not let the Matangi Caliphate, stop us from having a new constitution, because that's why we went to the 2007 violence. Let us at least get the Bill of Rights first. And we did get the Bill of Rights. That's why I'm talking the way I'm talking, because we have new Bills of Rights. You can only treat me with violence on the streets, but now I know my rights. And we come here every morning to teach Kenyans about their rights. Now, we got that. Raila told us, and I remember having a one-to-one discussion with him. He said, let us deal with it, we shall deal with the rest. So to accuse Raila for having doublespeak is really not to know where you want to go. Because I know this mess, it is only Raila who has an idea how we can come out of it. Because all these other people are wimps. They want to benefit from corruption. There are people, products, and people who want to benefit from corruption. This thing Cheruiyot keep talking about, that you are creating jobs for somebody. Who created the position of Prime Minister? It was William Ruto. Who created the position in the other at Serena?
Grand Coalition.
In the Grand Coalition.
They are called.
So you can't even say he is being blamed wrongly. He just wants to have the absolute powers, which he says Uhuru is lazy, cannot exercise properly for the issues, for the sake of corruption. And we can't have that. This country is good, and it is big enough for all of us when we share power, because that is the way it has been constructed, and we must all agree that we must create a table, not a pyramid, where Uhuru sits in State House and you can't question it.
Okay.
We must have the leader that MPs can question in Parliament, and so much power must be given to Parliament.
All right, Mheshimiwa Cheruiyot, the last word, as briefly as you can before my director kicks us out.
People like Otiende and Jakoyo ask us, why do you oppose what you haven't seen? And the question that I ask back to them is, why do you support what you don't know? What is the difference? They have also not seen the BBI. And in fact, it is even more dangerous to support something you don't know. Because if it turns out to be injurious to you, you don't have the opportunity to change your mind. You'd rather oppose it. Then when it gets to that particular point and you realize it means well for everybody, then you celebrate. But there's something that you must understand. And there's a question you asked Otiende that I told you. You're making his life so difficult. He cannot answer that question. You have to understand that the de facto style of politics, where Otiende practices his politics, is something I commonly refer to here as suspended reasoning, where only one person decides, the rest have to follow cue. That is why he cannot reconcile his mind to the fact that I can have a position completely different with that of my party leader or his deputy. To them, one man's position, everybody has to follow cue. There is no record anywhere of the deputy president having spoken against the BBI. If I speak against it, I'm an elected leader. It is my duty to either support or not to support. Why does he reduce it to be that, oh, you're speaking on behalf of somebody? If in your place of practice of politics, you have to speak for a particular person, it's not the same
But
everywhere.
when the deputy president says we should not be thinking about creating jobs, we should be thinking about delivering on the Big Four agenda, is that not a veiled reference to
That
the
is
BBI?
a proposal. Are you now confirming that BBI is creating positions?
No, I'm
What is
asking
wrong with
you,
it?
when he makes that reference,
That is
isn't it a veiled reference?
It is a proposal
to the
just like
BBI?
anybody else. He has said, don't reduce the BBI to be about creating jobs for people. Answer Kenya's problems.
Then
That's a proposal.
isn't that taking a position on the BBI already before it comes out?
I thought everybody took a position. Even this Esseli confirmed to you that he has a position which he presented.
All right.
So what's the
Proceed,
difference?
Proceed. Is that it?
I am done.
Oh, all
I am
right.
done.
Thank you so very much.
too
You
annoyed
have,
to
you have
continue.
saved me from the
I
wrath
thought we were going
of,
to put Jakoyo's false allegations in, because it's very bad, you know, to allow
No, don't allow
to
it.
allow him
If you allow him, you
to
must
make
give him-
false
give me the
allegations
rights to-
on national TV.
Which
And
false
that-
allegations
I
are
mean,
those?
because you see, you know, he closed his
Can you
remarks
give
by
a
saying
closing remark?
yes, please. 30 seconds. 30
Yes.
seconds.
Let's
Yeah,
fine.
closing
you know,
remarks.
let me make my
Okay, wait, let me
closing
start here.
remarks.
Let me start here because we
All
started
right.
there. Yes,
Thank
30
you.
seconds.
Yes, my closing remarks is that for all those who are fearful of BBI, give it a chance, let it come out, support the process, then you will now read the product, then you can input on it further. Secondly, the picture that the nation has of the Jubilee candidate playing football in some very terrible grounds, this is surely, whoever did this is not campaigning for Jubilee or the candidate. I think they are campaigning for the opponents, because this is clear evidence why somebody like Mariga should not be elected. Thank you very much.
For me, I would say that the handshake brought peace. That one we cannot refuse. But it did not end the problems of this country. Problems like tribalism, discrimination, exclusion, as exemplified by the recent appointments and all other appointments. Corruption is still on the highs. Impunity continues. So the problems were not removed. So we must give BBI a chance. It's one of the ways that we can be able to solve these problems. We need to accept that there's a problem. While I agree with Kimani Wamatangi that if you look at numbers, simple numbers, GDP has gone up, economy has grown by IMF standards, but in whose pocket? If you go in the villages, including Wamatangi's village, people are poorer than they were.
Okay. Senator Cheruiyot.
The photo that Otiende is referring confirms to you why you need an MP like Mariga. Kibra has been in ODM's hands for the last 20 years, in fact under the leadership of their party leader. That's why people are playing on mud fields like that one.
Okay.
They need an MP who can create sports avenues. That's why we decided to take that function there.
All right, Mr. Mamido.
MPs don't do those things. Those are issues that the Jubilee government, Jubilee government promised,
Yes.
and I hope nobody will be fooled in Kibra to vote because somebody played on mud or in the mud in Woodley.
So who are you
No, I'm not supporting it. I'm independent. But I wanted to say this, that leave the U.S. ambassador alone. ESCC is doing a good job. The DCI is doing a good job. The prosecutor, the DPP, is doing a good job. They need help. Remember, we have never prosecuted the chicken gate people. The British ones have been to prison and served their terms. They are out. Our chicken gates are walking on the street.
Okay.
So we need help from outside.
All right. Senator Wamatangi.
Closing remark, I would have loved to make a different one, but let me use the opportunity to correct Jakoyo, because he made a very wild allegation that only Kikuyus are appointed to positions, which is very wrong and which is I think mischievous.